Alright, I'm going to continue with the line editor here. Before I actually change the switch statement into functions, not going to use Vim, I'll actually make changes to the makefile to not copy the file source into a copy unless there's actually changes. So just take it out of the default target and move it into its own specific target here. So I'll just do that after line 5. I'll delete line 6. And we'll put it after line 5. New line in between, so let's just say line.c. I'm just doing what make does by default, but just laying it out manually here. I could use make variables, but that's fine. We'll just lay it out explicitly. Because there's only one source file right now. I have an extra new line, maybe 12. Oh, I guess I had an extra line there. Alright, so that looks well enough. Make sure I actually copy the changes. So that way when I make it and there's nothing to be done, it doesn't actually copy it anymore. But if I make it and there is something to be done, it builds it and then copies. So just a little thing there. So alright, line.c, we don't have that many lines. We have at least 60. Okay, so I want to change this switch statement to actually do commands up here. Probably before main. One command function for each one of these commands in the switch statement. So I'll go ahead and do that. We only have the sort of 5 things here. So 42, 80 lines. All right. So we have add, delete, print with line number, without line number, quit, and write. So I can make those into their own functions. And we'll go from there. And it'll be annoying. I'll keep, reprinting everything because I don't have very many facilities to do stuff with in the editor right now. I could put it after string dupe maybe. We'll say we have utility and type functions at the top after any global vars and types and such. And then main I do at the bottom just because I don't want to waste lines for declarations that would have to change later anyway. I don't like typing stuff twice, so that's alright. So we'll do it after line 14 here. I'll just put that. And I'll use booleans, but we'll have stuff right now for just the commands here. So I'll have a command append right now. It's not going to be passed in anything because I have global variables. And we can fill that out by sort of copying this stuff down here. We'll just lay it out right now with an array of function pointers to these commands, but I'll just have stubs that don't return anything at the moment. So we'll just return true or false for these, and that's fine. We'll have append, we'll have delete. We'll have stuff for the other ones, and I could really just copy this, but that's fine. I can still do mouse copy and paste if I need to. So append, delete, I have print. We'll say print with line number. So I'll say print line number, or with line number. That's long, but that's fine. And we'll just have a regular print without the line number. I think I can do multiple. Yeah, that's a little faster. We have quit. And we have write. So that's all we have at the moment. Okay, and then I'll have some command function pointers here, which I need to put it in parentheses, if I remember right. And this will be the name of it. We'll say command functions. It'll be an array, which would be filled. We could give it a size like 128. We're saying we're only supporting, say, the ASCII range for values here. That's fine, but it should fill out the size automatically if I leave it blank. But we can be explicit. I'll say I won't pass it anything, so they just take in voids, and this will be set to an array with initialized values here. So the initial value for these things, I'm going to make the singular characters that correspond to the commands. So at offset lowercase a, the command for the lowercase a function is going to be put in. And this would be append. And then I'll just do that for the rest as well. So append, delete. We have print with line number, which is going to be the n one right here. I don't have any autocomplete, so I have to get faster at typing one of these days and finding stuff with my pinky, which is very hard to do sometimes. We have quit, and we have write. And we'll have read and other ones eventually as well. I think I can do trailing comma because that was from C99 and I'm way past that at this point. All right, so this isn't going to do anything right now. Maybe it'll compile, maybe it won't. But we'll see. Should have at least 100 lines, but right before main, I always check if I have extra new lines because I feel the need to add them. All right, do we have an issue there? No issues so far because I'm not doing anything with it yet. All right. So these functions, I want to move actually their function bodies. I could write probably a move and a copy command to not need to copy paste. That might be okay. It depends. I'd have to change this line. I don't really want to do that. That's all right. Let me just mark where these are. So this is, let's say 17 to 18 there. Now we'll want all of this, which is what, 83 to 92 in between. So that's 84 to 91. So I'll just print that without the line number. And I'm going to copy that code and we'll say after whatever it was, 17. I'll just add that in. The indentation's going to be, whack. I need to fix that later, maybe off camera, but that's all right. So if I print the first 30 lines, I have these here. So 17, that line I can delete. So 16 to 30 approximately, and there we go. The append command is filled out. If I have an error here, I'd want to return false and not true, but that's all right. Okay, one other thing I wanted to do, at least on this video, before I forget, is fill out the current line value. So append is going to update the current line or the dot, the period within ed that is set for operations, so you can tell where lines are and you can more easily script or reason about editing operations. If you delete lines, you want to know where the current line ends up so you can add at the point that you end up with after deletion, for example. You can implement a change command by doing that, so that's a good foreshadowing. So I want to update the current line after this. Append is pretty easy. After we write all the lines, we can just say the current line equals whatever line we end up on, which is wherever A1 is here. It's only going to be incremented if we enter a line in and we're not stopping. So that's fine. So dot equals the last line added or appended. Yeah, we'll just say last line added to buffer. And that'll be all right. So okay, after that we'll do delete. I did just add a line. So delete, we'll say after line 30, I'll add in stuff. But what do I want to add in? I don't know. And I should add in getting the last line eventually. So I did this stuff. I can delete it, but that's all right. So D would be this. So it's 103 to 107. Would be just that flat stuff there. And I have to print again without this info so I don't copy in the text for the line number in the tab, because that would be annoying. But this is my copy paste setup right now. So that was after line 30, I think. And we'll just say 20 to 60. So that'll be in there for delete. Yep. So 30 I can delete. All right, and that should also update the last line, which would be for the delete command, and 34 is the last one after that. So for the delete command, the current line, rather not the last line, that's being updated. The current line should be updated after deletion to be sure that we don't refer to something that's outside the buffer range now. So either basically the first number in the range, so all these numbers are going to be removed. We want to set the current line to the first number in that range that was removed, or the last line deleted, kind of technically, you can think of it as. Or the last line in the buffer if it's now below the range that was deleted. So if you delete from the end of the buffer, the last few lines in the buffer, then the current line needs to be below that so you don't refer to memory that now doesn't exist. And the last line should refer to memory that does exist, or it might be 0. But we can handle those two cases, sort of, if it does exist, or the last line, if it's below the end of the buffer that you deleted, we can handle those two cases with a min, define or just inline code here, and that's fine. So the current line could equal, if A1 is going to be less than the last line, that's good. Then we can set it equal to that. So we can just have a ternary here, or we can do last line, and this would be a simple min, right? So dot equals last line deleted or new last line in the buffer. And that should be all right. So I'll just put that there. That way, if we delete lines 7, 8, 9, 10 in a 10-line buffer, then last line would be 6, and current line would be equal to that. If we delete lines 1, 2, and 3 in a 10-line buffer, we would still have new lines 1, 2, and 3, so this can be equal to that. Maybe it's not A1, maybe it's a different value, but I think right now that'll be okay. All right, so now that delete's done, I'll get the line number printing there. We don't have 150 lines yet. Do we have 130? We do. I can also delete these cases because they're not valuable anymore. Free up some lines. So that's 96 to 113 or 114 with the new line after. But we'll see how that is. All right. Still have 120. Okay. So these are just one-liners. I don't really need to mess with those. I can just copy those directly, and that'd be easier. I need to re-add the comments for these things too, but that's all right. So line 40, let's just add after that for this code, and then that would have added one line, so this would be 46 for the regular print. So after 46, I'll add the other line, which is just without the integer in the tab. But I'll make sure I get it correct by doing that. All right, the changes. Quit will not have a go-to anymore. Quit will actually be changed to do the memory release, so it'll be a little different. It'll probably do this stuff here, because that's where it's going to anyway. And then when I quit the program from main, I can call exit and have an add exit function that calls quit, or set quit up to call exit, and that would be all right. That would probably handle abnormal ends somewhat better and ensuring all memory is freed, or I can just have quit call exit, and then the main function can call the command quit if it ever reaches this point. I might do that instead. I just want one sort of exit point to all this. I feel like that would be good. So let's see, command quit, that's after 52. I can do it after that. So I'll just we'll free all the memory. I mean, I can type that up here right now. Free remaining line buffer memory, again, to be nice to the OS. I gave him a hat, right? I'll do that again if I can find it. I'll give him a hat there. Free lines I, okay. And then we'll just call exit here. Exit success, which would be the same as returning 0 from main. And this will not return, so we can put built-in unreachable, or if it gets to this point, I'll actually return, because we shouldn't be returning from command quit. That would be bad. So I'll do that. So quit looks like this. Let's delete 52, which moves all of it up by 1, so we'll delete the new line 56 for that return true as well. So now, okay, we just have this. It shouldn't reach this point, but again, that's just making sure. All right. I should be able to delete this stuff here, which is 100 to 111, 112 approximately. Don't have 120 lines anymore. Okay. So I'm going to replace the done sort of stuff with that before I forget. So after 107, we'll say, I'll put one new line and we'll say quit program now. We'll just call command quit manually, and that'll free the memory and then exit, and that'll be all right. Okay, that added 2 lines, so 114 maybe. These 3 lines I can remove. 111, 113. So there should be maybe 112, 111 lines now. All right. Okay, and then write file would be W here. That's 101 to 104. But let me remember the stuff above that point. So 59. Okay. 101 to 104, we'll do 105 to be safe. But after line 59, we'll add in. That looks correct, except we won't have the file pointer FP anymore, so I'll have to re-get that. But that's all right. So let's just remove all of this now that that's going to be gone. So after 102, this will be what, 103 to 110, we'll delete that. and then I'll replace it with dereferencing the command pointer array to call the functions, and hopefully it works the same after I add in that file pointer variable, because I'll get a compile error from that. I have 108, I have 105, okay. Alright, that should have been after here. Oh yeah, I just deleted it. Okay, so after 102. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, I dereference the command functions. I can check if we have a command first, actually. That would be alright. Let's do that first for validation. So if we don't have anything in the array, which would be command functions offset by command, that's the command we're running. If we don't have anything in the array, we just don't call it as a function, so we can check the value in there, and that would be null. So we don't have that. Let's say or, just to be lazy here. Or it returns, one of the command functions returns false we can have. They don't really return false right now, but that's fine. And that would be just dereferencing it and calling that as a function with no arguments, because they only take in no arguments right now, or void. So we have an issue in one of those. Then I'll put the old question mark there, and then if we have error text in the future, I'll print that out here. So print error text if, let's say if user has done the capital H command. We'll do that, because that's normally the only situation in which it occurs. So here we go. We'll just print a question mark right now for an error. So it's, yeah, less than this stuff, but that's all right. When I move this logic out to parse addresses and commands, this will be parsed into there, and we'll just have everything return with an error and then print the text or not to kind of make this more succinct. But I do need to add this file variable to that write command, so I will do that as well, which may be in the first 100 lines, yeah. So that's here. So 59, we'll delete. I'll look at those again. So this FP line's 59P, 59, comma. I'll change that. So I need to delete it and then add in its place, which would be, I guess, after line 58. Yeah. Add a new line 59, which is after line 58, so I'll add that in. And we'll just do file star FP. We'll do the same thing, but it previously did not have the variable, now it does. Have a local copy. Okay, we have file name. That's alright, but I didn't have the file FP. I mean, I could add that as a global as well, but I have too many globals as it is, and you're probably getting conniptions from the indentation being messed up. But we'll see if that works. So what I'm doing now is I just moved everything to their own functions. All the commands are in their own functions. If I have other mistakes, you know, I'll have to fix them from compile errors, but that's alright. This is going to reference those functions, and we're going to dereference according to the command that was entered in, if it exists. If it doesn't exist, hopefully we just get a question mark and nothing bad happens or seg faults. If it does exist, we should call it, and they should work as normal, because they're being dereferenced through the array according to the position by the character that was input on this line into this variable. That's a very long-winded explanation. Okay, array subscript has type character. Because character can be signed, it might be signed by default, that's fair, and it doesn't like signed, or at least signed character, 8-bit types for subscripts. Okay, I can fix that, that kind of makes sense. I haven't really seen that warning or error very much in my life, so I'm kind of, it looks a little weird, but that makes sense. Okay, so that would be wherever I have command defined, so line 7, let's change that. Copy that, 7, let's add after that. So that when I delete it, it's okay. So I'll do... The other ones I want to be characters, though. Let's add unsigned char command. And then after that, I'll add the regular character star for the other ones. But the command can be 8-bit if it's going to be used to dereference an array and be a subscript. So yeah, that'll be alright. That'll be alright. So this line I'll delete 7. That way it looks like this now. Okay, so we can see if it works by default. It probably won't. Nothing ever works by default, right? Except it does. Hey, so printing works, which is the easiest one. It's a one-liner, but that's fine. That proves that it did find it, and it did run it, at least for the in print with line number command here. It did this code, it left. I can probably remove the to-dos at line 41 and 47, which is now 46, because I deleted one line. Right, okay. And that worked, and deleting worked, and addition would work, because I didn't change anything. I don't have a way to check the current line number, that would be a new command, but that stuff seems to be all right now. So, okay, why did I want to make these things into commands to begin with? Other than maybe a big switch not working effectively in some situations. One, I want less lines of code, more succinct. Performance could suffer, it depends. Right now it doesn't matter that much. But one, I want less lines of code to read and potential bugs, and two, other than the simplification from that, I want these functions to be composable to some extent, and I feel like adding a pseudo state machine within a switch that goes back to the while loop and might set like the next command to run and then have a switch that is set to say don't get input, use the current input but with a new command, instead of having logic that does that, which wouldn't be that much. I want to be able to sort of compose these things as their own command language if I want, or to be able to compose new commands built out of these, we'll say, new primitives or building blocks. So what's one way of doing that? Well, we have an append command, but there is an I command, usually an ed, which is for inserting, and that does the same thing as append, but instead of adding after the address you give it in the first address, it adds at that address. So it kind of it doesn't overwrite, but it adds in the place of the line you give it instead of right after the line you give it. So if I appended at line 1, I would add starting at line 2. If I insert at line 1, I would add a new block of text starting at line 1 and not line 2. So we can add that in now that we have a command structure set up. So what I'm going to do is call append, but with basically A1 decremented, and call that in an insert command. So this ends at 28, so I'll add after there. So let's have command insert, and this will, let's say, function same as command append, but add at the given address, not, I'm just adding underscores for emphasis, not after it. So this would be, we should also add checks for these things. If we have A1, if it's above 0, or if it's not 0, it could be negative because it's an int. Let's say if above 0, then we'll decrement, and we'll just call command append. Since that is a boolean and this is a boolean, we can just return these things, and that seems all right. And maybe that would be enough for an insert command. Maybe or maybe not. So I just put that right after there. We can see if that works, just as a check. So let's say in the first 10 lines, let's say I'll test it out and add after line 4 just as a comparison. This will be new line 5 and line 6. And we'll end that. So we have new line 5 and line 6. Those are at lines 5 and 6. I'm going to delete those. And now I'll add at line 4 with the insert command. And it does not like that because I don't have it dereferenced in the array. That's true. I didn't add it to the array because I'm a big dummy. And so I know that if the command doesn't exist, that other check works because it's not in this array. So yeah, I did that on purpose, definitely. But no, I'll add after the delete just to keep these in alphabetical order in the functions array, not necessarily above it. So yeah, after 73, we'll add I. That will be command insert. I should also add comments here. Let's say by default it uses the current line I. And then I can add other explanatory or doc string type comments to these functions. Maybe not on video because that takes a bit and isn't directly logic related. It just takes a bunch of time. But all right, add it to there. We have this stuff. Okay, let's see if the insert command works. So at line 4, this will be new line 4 and line 5 and an extra new line. Okay, so that adds at line 4 as opposed to, again, if we use the append command, this will be new line 7. Right, so that's just a test there. Delete should work the same. So that's good. Okay. I'll quit just to make sure I don't have other changes. So what's the other thing we can do then, now that we can add at a line number and we can add and delete? Well, I can have something, instead of deleting code and then adding lines after like I was doing to make some of these changes earlier, we can add in a change command, which will do the same thing. It will delete and then add lines after. So I can do that by composing these previous commands that I have. Aha. So let's say we do insert, because if we delete and then add after the first line in the new range that was previously deleted, it's kind of weird if you do that. If you delete lines 1 through 3 and then you want to change them, you don't want to add starting at line 2 after you do that. You want to add starting at the full range, which starts at line 1. So anyway, I'll do that after these two functions here. So after line 44, which is after the delete command, we'll have command change, and this will delete, then add new lines in their place, thereby changing those lines. And since everything is Boolean, we can just return the commands that are being evaluated, so we can return command insert, and if that's successful, return command delete, and this can be a cool little one-liner, and that might be alright. So that'd be command change here. I do need to add that to the array. Eventually I'll add searching with a little bit of regex, so I don't have to kind of hunt and peck for all these line numbers, because I don't keep them straight. But alright, we'll add it to that array. That's before line 80, somewhere between here. Okay, so change, alphabetical order, I'll add after 77. And we'll add command change, and by calling these two functions, the current line will be updated according to the last thing that ran. And it'll be ran in a list because, yeah, the current line is global. So append will update the current line, delete will also update it. So change doesn't need to, because those will. Insert will update the current line by doing this. I do need to update the current line in these other functions. So hopefully I remember that. I believe this takes a whole line range, because it'll call delete first. So we can do that. And hopefully that will be okay. So I just added these two in there. Just to make sure it works by default. I do need to mess with the current lines though. So I should set an initial current line value down here. I do want to test change, but I'll set an initial value down here after we read everything in, which would be wherever the last line value is. So that's after 94. 9. Can I find the 9? There we go. We'll add after that, and we'll say the initial value for the current line, or the dot, is going to be the last line. So set this initially to last line read in from file. Okay. Just make sure those changes are there, so we'll set that by default. So I need to set that for the other functions. These will all probably update it. So the print functions and write doesn't update the current line, I don't think. It just writes out. Quit won't, because we'll be quitting. So probably just the prints, the print functions, and the current line for printing is set to the last line printed, typically. So let's say after line 52, the current line would be set to A2. It's the last line that was in the buffer. If A2 is a valid value and it passes validation by this point, then that would be the last line printed, so that's what it would be set to. So this would be A2. So dot equals the last line printed. I could say last valid, although it would be valid at this point, but that's fine. And if we added that, then we added one new line to the buffer, so 57 would be 58, and I would just do the same thing. Alright, I should have tests for that, of course, but I don't have a command to actually print the last line. I don't have a function to print the current line number, or the last line or anything, but I could add in a basic thing to do that, which would be normally the equal command. So, yeah, so let me do that then. I could go in alphabetical ordering like in here, but equals not an alphabet character. I guess lexicographic ordering, however you do that. I could go by the ASCII ordering, which is, the mouse doesn't work in there. Where's the equal sign? Somewhere in there. It really doesn't matter. Oh, there it is, 3D. Hey, it's 3D, not 2D on the page. So 3D is before 4.1. So it'd be before the A. It doesn't really matter. I'll probably just put the symbols. Yeah, I'll probably just put the symbol functions for like new line or null. It calls it command null in documentation, or the equal sign or the exclamation mark. I'll just put those probably after all the letters in the command functions array. So I'll just put it after here right now, right before. So, okay, after line 76, let's add, I can call it command equal, which is just the equal sign, or really it just prints the current address that you give it, or the current line number. If you don't give it anything, I should have defaults. All right, what does OpenBSD have to say for this stuff? Prints the line number of the address line. That's a little vague, but all right. Because I already have print with line number, so I can't really call it some permutation of that. I could say print line number, and then print with line number is also a function which makes no sense with this one, so let's just say print address, maybe, or command equal might make more sense. I'll just say print address. That's still pretty vague, but oh well. It would just print the A1 number, the first number that you give it pretty much. So print line number or the address of the given address, which is fine. So %d, I guess I could do n. Yeah, this doesn't give a format. I think it does it with the new line by default usually. So we'll just print the first line number there. And we'll just return true. I'm trying to think. I don't have a way to give this the $sign or the dot, which is what makes it useful, because I don't have functions to actually parse those out for addresses yet, but we can add that in for later. So right now, if we just give it a 1, it'll print a 1, so that's kind of not useful. But when we make commands to print out addresses like $-10p or something, we can give it that, and it would give whatever the last number minus 10 lines the address would be. Yeah, so that's not useful right now, but oh well. Oh well. It's in for later. We can at least check that that works by not doing that. I hit enter too easily. So we can actually check that change works and just change this line by erasing it and then adding in its place. I believe this is... yeah, that prints the last line by default for the equal sign. Okay, that was at 93. And we still have this. So change doesn't work, because I just did this, and it didn't replace it. So why would change not work? I don't know. We'll add that in, though. We'll add that in just to make sure. Okay, so it looked like change did not do anything, which is return. Oh, because I'm returning insert. I need to return delete and then insert, not insert then delete. Yeah, why didn't any of you guys tell me that I got that backwards? You should have told me. Why weren't you there to tell me? I want to delete the code. I even put it in the comment there. I want to remove it and then add in its place. You always want to remove before you add. That makes undoing easier to do later when you add in an undo feature, which for ed was only single level, so undo will undo the last undo. There's no multi-level undo. A way to make that a little simpler conceptually to program is always do your deletes before your additions, because additions can add new lines and you'll have to fix things up. Deletes, you'll know you'll always, if you delete before a given range, you always, well, those numbers will be static, so to speak. If you add, you can be appending new stuff to the buffer and have to make fix-ups as you go along, or it'll make things a little bit harder. But anyway, I'll get to that in a long time from now. Because I'm getting sundowners. I'm getting tired. Because I'm doing this at night after work. Let's say, okay, insert, delete, delete, and then insert, which I had in the comment. So sweet that I actually followed my comments there, except I didn't. Okay, we can check if changing actually works. Let's add some garbo at line 5. New garbo to remove with maybe the C change command. Why not? So we got this stuff here. It's 5 through 7. I'll remove 5 through, yeah, I'll just do 5 to 7. We'll do a C. And now there should be these new 2 lines in their place. And there we go. So we removed them and then added by appending in their place. So that is how the change command works. That way you don't have to delete and then add or delete and then insert. You can do those both in one command. And that works out a lot better. And we added a base equal command that doesn't do anything. Let me actually check that that works. So 10, comma 10 equal is going to be 10. Right now it doesn't care what you send it. So as long as it's within the range of lines, so I can't say like 200 because that's outside the last line, right? That'll become more useful when we actually parse out the addresses, which I might do in the next one, because as I said, I'm getting tired and we got a little bit of stuff done, so that's good. We got a change command, we got an insert command, we changed stuff to be functional, so to speak. We got more than 120 lines, we got more than 40 lines, definitely. But less than 140, so I got to binary search my way to the last line. No, but regardless, we're doing this now. So the main is a little bit more succinct. I do want to move this stuff out into, say, an edit command or some way to initialize a function. That'll be later on. But what I said I was going to get to, and actually I'll probably get to on the next one, is going to be a command to parse out this. So I'll make a command that's called get command or next command or something, and that'll just take this logic to print the prompt, get a line of input. Right now I'll just extract this logic into there. So main can be simple. We'll have a while loop to get a command and run it, basically. But that function will parse out a command and the parameters for that command, so we can use stuff like an f or file name command or a move or a copy command that takes in a third parameter after this C here. And we can make a function to get the next address. So let's say we'll read a line of input, we'll parse out that line character by character and get, integers or other symbols such as a dollar or period to stand in for the first or the current, the last or the current line, or other things in there. We want to add in address offsets probably, so we can do 10 minus 5, and we can offset from an initial address 10, 10 plus 5, or 10 plus 4, and do a little bit of computation like that to calculate an address, or dollar minus 20, for example, or dot plus 20. And then we'd be able to do stuff like dot minus 20, dot plus 20, p, so print a range of lines around the current line. But that'll be coming up in the future. So I'll try to do that on the next one to parse these things out. We'll have to handle multiple addresses with comma or semicolon separation. And yeah, I'll get to that then. So hopefully this was somewhat enjoyable or entertaining. I need to come up with a new outro speech, I guess. But yeah, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And yeah, cheers.